Welcome to Anarcho Markets. Today we're taking a deep dive into conservatism and libertarianism, two philosophies that seem to be allies in the fight for freedom, but actually clash in fundamental ways. You see, conservatism talks a big game about preserving traditions and values, but it often relies on government force to make that happen. Libertarianism, though, goes deeper. It asks, can we truly preserve freedom if we rely on a state, any state, to enforce social norms? The answer, as you might guess, is a hard no. Here's where conservatism hits a wall. Traditional conservatives want to protect family values, community, maybe even religion. These are things that they believe keep society from descending into chaos. And hey, there's some truth in that. Humans do rely on certain structures to create a stable society. But the problem is, conservatives often turn to the state to enforce these values. That means they're not actually reducing the state's power, they're redirecting it. Conservatism ends up compromising freedom in the name of order, using the same centralized powers they criticize. Libertarians, however, see it differently. Libertarianism is fundamentally about removing coercion, whether it's the government, a majority vote, or even a centralized moral authority. Instead of depending on state enforcement, libertarians argue that real freedom comes from voluntary interactions, private property, and self-ownership. So while conservatives may want to preserve order through state force, libertarians believe society can create order organically. Now, what does organic order mean? It's simple. Society, left to itself, develops natural structures. Families, communities, businesses, they all have their own rules, their own agreements. When people have property rights, they have a stake in maintaining order in their own sphere without needing top-down enforcement. Libertarianism says, let's get rid of the coercive middleman. Imagine a community where norms are respected because people voluntarily agree to them, not because of a government threat. Rules emerge based on mutual benefit, not on legislation that imposes uniformity. So here's where conservatives and libertarians diverge. Conservatives want the state to preserve a moral code, to be a stabilizing force. But libertarians see that as a contradiction. If you give the state the power to enforce good values, you're also giving it the power to enforce bad values. It's the same sword, and it can cut either way. Libertarianism doesn't compromise like that. It understands that the state is a tool of control. Whether that control is used for traditional or progressive ends, the result is the same. Freedom is compromised, and power remains centralized. Libertarianism, in contrast, respects individuals enough to let them decide their values in their own communities. So when you really break it down, conservatism and libertarianism aren't just different, they're incompatible. Conservatism, despite its intentions, falls into the trap of using the state to fix society. Libertarianism says, let people choose their own paths. Let communities create their own orders. In a truly free society, order doesn't come from legislation. It comes from the ground up. That's the core of libertarianism, and why, if we're serious about freedom, we have to look beyond conservatism and embrace a truly stateless approach. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe for more insights into freedom, markets, and decentralization here on Anarcho Markets. Let's keep pushing for a future free from coercion. See you next time.